Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today, sending good vibes, sending positivity, sending blessings, and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. First and foremost, once again, like I've said in other videos, but again, to my condolences to KEKE and her loved ones. Rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers to those who genuinely love KEKE and are, doing everything to preserve her memory and not come out clout chasing or lying or doing all this other nonsense that we've got to talk about now. So today we're talking Love and Marriage Huntsville. You guys know why you're here. Today we're talking because PHONICS Unhooked has appeared, as I knew she would, and gave her a little spin on things. And we're going to talk about all of it, right? Because it seems, again, there was no denouncing of anything Funky DINEVA said. Let me make that clear. No denouncing of anything Funky DINEVA said. Like I said, if 24 hours go by from Funky DINEVA's live that he did earlier this week and nobody responds, nobody that Funky DINEVA specifically called out was his good and close friends, you already know what it means. You know what it means. So, with that being said, the irony in all of that is PHONICS Unhooked said, essentially, KEKE's father didn't know yet that she had passed on, and apparently KEKE's husband had tried to call and couldn't get a hold of him, and so then she was basically explaining who in the family told whom about KEKE's passing. But it sounded like to me the husband was the one that was trying to take the reins and inform everyone. So he should have been the person to decide whether or not he wanted it to be on the blogs, whether or not he wanted it to be released to the media yet. But it seems as though PHONICS Unhooked took it upon herself anyways to just release it herself. I mean, release it through a YouTuber, right? And so then she wants to go in on the uncle who she says, quote, messed up the statement. Boy, what about your statement? Your statement, anytime somebody says that somebody is surrounded by their loved ones, surrounded by their husband and kids, people immediately think CANCER. They think somebody had been struggling with some type of debilitating illness, some type of, something that was kept private, and then out of nowhere they passed. Like what happened with Chadwick Boseman, right? How nobody knew he had cancer, right? That's usually what happens when that takes place. So a colleague of mine, a friend of mine who had passed, it was a similar statement that her family put out. Except for it sounded like essentially she didn't have CANCER, but she did have a debilitating illness that apparently was addressed to later, came on too strong, and then led to her unfortunate and untimely passing a couple of months ago, right? But that's what people usually think when they see statements like that. They think CANCER or some other type of debilitating illness. So that's number one. Number two, nobody had any right to be speaking out, you guys, because it was too much drama. There's always drama when you're talking about large families. It doesn't matter if it's weddings, if it's funerals, if it's family reunions. There's always drama. There's always beef. There's always messiness. There's always people who want to show up and start mess. There's people who don't show up out of protest, and so on and so forth, you guys. Nobody's family is perfect. But don't tell us that you want privacy, but you're going to come now and air out your own family. And you said you don't want to make this about your niece. You don't want to make this about KEKE, but you're bashing her relatives that are going to be the ones that are going to be around her husband and around her 3 children who no longer have their mom. So in the event you are aware you're going in on KEKE's mom, and saying that she's, expected her daughter to be some big reality star or whatever, and you're going over how she's grieving or how often she was or wasn't involved in KEKE's life and all these things. And here's the thing. It's not a competition, PHONICS Unhooked.
It's not a competition on who was close to KEKE and who wasn't. Because then if we pull down the things that you've said on your platform about KEKE, they were not nice. They went too far. So how are you in the space to judge what KEKE's mom did or didn't do? And furthermore, KEKE isn't here to defend herself. And then the other piece I want to get to is this obsession with who went to the funeral and who didn't go to the funeral. And whether or not if KEKE's so-called quote-unquote friends attended the funeral. And my question is this: are you going to the funeral to honor your late niece? Or were you going to the funeral to see if there was a spectacle? Were you going to the funeral to see which one of the Love and Marriage cast members were there so you could fuel that information immediately to the blogs? Because, again, all this info keeps coming out, and you say you want privacy at this time. You say you don't want anybody to tarnish KEKE's name or put out any type of inference that anything is a DRUG, overdose, or anything is an unalive situation that you're accusing the uncle of, but you are mute on Funky DINEVA putting that out initially on the initial post from the Jasmine brand and reinforcing that theory a few days ago. You didn't have a problem with him saying that he thinks that KEKE quote-unquote OFFED herself. You don't have a problem with that, apparently. Apparently, it's okay for KEKE to drag your niece. And he's been dragging your niece since the beginning. And not once have you ever spoken out and said it was inappropriate, it was too far, it was disrespectful to your niece's memory. Not once. But yet you're concerned about who from the cast was at the funeral. But you just said that you had concerns about said uncle tarnishing, putting out speculation of something else that could be the cause of KEKE's death. But you were on the mute challenge on the multiple times that Funky DINEVA has put that same narrative out there on social media. And you didn't stop him. You didn't condemn him. And the thing is this, he has nearly 500,000 followers. That is why people are asking for you to condemn it. He has a large platform, so even people who don't watch Love and Marriage Huntsville, there are people that still are influenced and can believe anything that he says, can believe any narrative. But since you didn't denounce that and he kept shouting you out, it looks like you had no problem with what he said. Because for some reason, you have more smoke for another YouTuber. You have more smoke for Mel for some reason. And let me get to that for a second. Are you or are you not aware that there is a restraining order against Martell Holt? Are you or are you not aware that Martell is not allowed to be in contact with Melody Cherie Rogers? Are you or are you not aware Martell is not supposed to be discussing Melody Cherie Rogers? And on what planet does Mel need to be in the same room as Martell's 10-year side chick that also has been on the internet for years, dragging Melody Cherie Rogers and saying inappropriate and disgusting things about her children and feeding information to different bloggers? Why does Mel need to be there for that? Now, the rumor is Mel went to allegedly the private viewing. The rumor is Mel allegedly did a lot of the catering for the food for the family. And the rumor is Mel paid her respects privately. But here's the problem, right? Because Mel, it was going to be an issue whether or not Mel was there or not for you. And that's the real tea, right? Because you were looking for some type of moment with Mel. That seems to be what it is. You're so much of a fan of Mel that you were hoping to be there to get an autograph and to get a photo next to her, because where is the concern for your late niece? Where is the concern about honoring her, preserving her memory? Instead of thinking, sitting up there looking around to see who is, who isn't there, looking around to see, oh, what information can I feed to so-and-so about this, about that? Oh, who can I tell to show proof that I actually was at the funeral? None of that should be the focus if you were truly there to honor your late niece. But again, you guys are so wrapped up in the show. It's not the bloggers, it's you guys. You guys have flipped the entire narrative to make everything that relates to the show Mel's fault, and I'm calling BS. Because in the earlier seasons, who brought on KEKE to go after Kimmy? Whose daughter was that? PHONICS Unhooked. Whose daughter was that? To have KEKE go after Kimmy at her graduation because she was pissed that her and Kimmy were not on good terms. And was pissed about the dynamics of Mel and Kimmy's relationship and when Mel invited and didn't invite whom and all these things. And you guys wanted to get Kimmy in line. And then you came along as well to also go after Kimmy and Mel. But see, nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody just wants to talk about the last year, right? Everybody just wants to talk about the last year and drop receipts about the last year, play recordings about the last year. But nobody wants to talk about the years prior to KEKE ever coming on this show. The years prior to reality TV was even a twinkle in any of your guys' eyes. That there was beef before that. That there was issues before that. So don't blame the show. And if you and your family were so concerned about KEKE's well-being and whether or not she was fit enough for it to be on the show, where was the intervention? But you didn't seem concerned when it was okay to go against people you approved of on the show, and that's where I can't take the hypocrisy. Because if you were truly upset KEKE was on the show, she wouldn't have been on the show, period. And wasn't there allegedly sabotage from the start? That KEKE and her husband was the original couple that Mel and Martell wanted at their house as part of the audition process, and somebody's daughter found out, got wind of it, and hurried up and ran to Mel and talked about some issues KEKE had to sabotage her so she could be the one that's on the reality TV show? So who is the one that wants to be famous? Who is the one that wants to be the big time reality star? Because it wasn't KEKE. KEKE had other aspirations, but wanted to utilize reality TV to tell her story. But some people now want to manipulate this and place sole blame on the show and sole blame on Mel and flip the narrative as if nothing that they said or did on the show or off the show in interviews or off the show on YouTube platforms or off the show on Instagram lives or off the show on Facebook, calling KEKE every single name but the child of God, disowning your own family in front of the world, saying that you would never go, you don't want her to go to your funeral and you were never going to go to hers, saying in multiple interviews that she is DAED to you and your daughter. But now all of a sudden, you guys don't want to talk about that. You guys don't want to hold yourself accountable. I was expecting within the first 5 minutes to say, you know what? There were issues there. Things were not the best. Family has problems. I said things that were too far about my niece that I regret. I said things about my niece that were inappropriate, that were too far, and I apologize for that. I didn't hear any of that. But instead, I heard judgment on everyone else. And instead, I heard dragging of everybody else. And my question is, where is the accountability? Because apparently you're perfect. Apparently you're perfect and you are not responsible for anything. You didn't say or do anything that might have upset KEKE. That's basically what you're saying. You're saying everything that happened to KEKE is the show's fault and Mel's fault. Meanwhile, KEKE wasn't even currently filming the show. And you want to leave out the part where, again, people wanted to, quote unquote, expose KEKE and release recordings of KEKE. And even today, allegedly playing sound of KEKE crying. Why? Why is that necessary? So you could find a way to bash Mel. So again, it is not about KEKE, and it never was about KEKE, but you're using KEKE to, again, push a false narrative. Are you concerned about KEKE, or are you concerned about Mel? Because it seems that the energy is about Mel. But don't tell us about it. You talk to Mel yourself about it. But enough is enough with these false narratives. Enough is enough of placing blame and trying to place blame on all these people. Well, if KEKE didn't do what the uncle is alluding to, or what Funky DINEVA is so assured of, why do you keep blaming Mel in the show? Which would indicate that that was a contributing factor to her untimely death, which would indicate other things. So you guys are putting out that narrative that potentially something nefarious led to her death. But you were the same person that just said you wanted to keep the details of her death private. But how is it now it's convenient to blame the show and blame Mel for everything? As if there wasn't years prior to the show ever existing that there were issues beforehand. But the moment that KEKE was on your side, you ignored whatever alleged issue she had. But the moment you felt she wasn't up, it was back to calling her a drug addict on the show. It was back to making false accusations against her and running to various platforms and spreading lies about her and saying the most malicious things you could think of. So if we're going to keep it all the way 100, everybody needs to own their behavior. You can't do this one-sided bias mess and expect me to just be like, oh my gosh, that's the complete truth. No. Everybody needs to be held accountable that they were not nice to KEKE and that they've said some mean and disparaging things about KEKE. It's not just one person that's responsible for anything that's wrong in your life, you guys, or one person that's responsible for anything negative that has happened to your life. No. Where is your accountability? Where's the mean things that you said and did? But you're putting Mel above KEKE's own family. You're putting Mel above all these people that KEKE has known all of her life. And treating Mel like she, was KEKE's best friend since they were in diapers together. And did everything together growing up. Got married together, had kids together, were like sisters. That is how you were elevating Mel and KEKE's friendship. And my question is, for why? I thought it was Tisha and KEKE that were close. I thought it was Tisha and KEKE that wanted to have kids together. I thought it was Tisha and KEKE who wanted to get married around the same time to their husbands. I thought that's what it was about, was their closeness. But instead, you're turning this into something nefarious. And now you want to come back Sunday and drag Mel for what? For what? It's not going to take away the things that you allege about her youngest child, the things that you said about her in regards to her ex-husband Martell, and all these other things. You can't take that stuff back. You went too far, which is why you're not on the show anymore. Make it make sense. This is what I don't understand. I don't understand people who refuse to take accountability, but want to point the finger at anybody else so they could just get dragged and receive hate. That's not how this is going to work. But somebody who truly was trying to protect and preserve KEKE's memory would not be partaking in an ongoing family feud, because nobody wins when the family feuds. We don't need to know who was or wasn't at the balloon, send off. We don't need to know whether or not, KEKE's mom was there with her grandkids or not, or how long it took KEKE's mom to get to Huntsville, or how long she stayed in Huntsville, or who she hung out with in Huntsville. None of that matters. What was the most important was attending the funeral and paying her respects to her daughter. But all this other stuff of trying to prove who's closest to who's got the scoop on who's got the exclusive on who cares? KEKE's not here to defend herself. KEKE's life is on this earth is not here anymore. It's gone. So all this other nonsensical stuff is BS. All this is doing, Phonics Unhooked, is keeping up mess. You're literally baiting the uncle now to respond. All because you quote unquote don't know him. Why? Sometimes it's better not to say anything. And that seems to be going on deaf ears, you guys. That seems to be going on deaf ears because certain people want their story to be the truth and the only truth. But they don't want to tell the entire truth of what's happened. They only want to tell the part that makes them look good. But they want to leave out all of the disparaging and nasty and negative things that have been said and done behind the scenes and publicly, and we're supposed to just take it as the gospel. We're supposed to just take the word for it. Make it make sense. We've got to do better, you guys. But again, if you have the time, just listen to that. Be my guest, feel free. Apparently, comments were getting deleted that were calling out Funky DINEVA. Comments were being deleted, regards about MEL or whatever. Like it was just a circus. It was an absolute circus. But still no denouncing of Funky DINEVA. Still seeing nothing wrong with people, again, playing audio recordings of KEKE after her death. None of that's an issue, apparently. Funky DINEVA and his 8-minute rant against your niece. None of that's okay. But as long as, KEKE looked good and somebody did a great job putting together the program and you were excited to see your daughter in the program and all these other things, all that's what mattered. And who showed up, right? Listing every single person from the cast but Kimmy and Mel. Why? As if there are not legal and security reasons that Mel cannot be in the same vicinity as Martell. But see, again, that doesn't fit your narrative. Or you want to pretend to not to know any of that, right? Or was this Martell? Is that what Martell said? See, Mel didn't show up. I thought she was her good friend. Is that what Martell told you? Did Martell tell you about the restraining order? Did he tell you about the case? That he's not allowed to talk about her? He's not allowed to be around her? But it seems that seems to be the topic of conversation at KEKE's funeral. And my question is why? And if Mel paid her respects in private because she found out that Martell was going to be there and be in violation of a restraining order, why would she go? Why would she want the headache? The fact of the matter is, Mel allegedly did pay her respects, but for some reason, you wanted the photo op, you wanted the autograph with Mel, and it's not necessary. Everything doesn't need to be publicized. Everything doesn't need to be on the internet. We don't need to know all this information, Phonics Unhooked. You talk as if you're still on the show. Was Carlos King there? Since you're running down everybody affiliated with the show. Was Carlos King there? Was Oprah Winfrey there? Like who was all there? Who else was there from the show? Who else from production was there at the show? Sonny and Moses and Destiny, they were all there too? Like let's run down everybody. Was Trisha and her husband and Kenny there? Who was all there? Since you want to go there. But none of it matters. None of it matters, Phonics Unhooked, because ultimately, all this does is take the focus off of KEKE and turns into a finger-pointing game, which is the reason why I didn't want to do any videos on this, because I knew where this was heading. But Funky DINEVA got first in line and wanted to malign your niece's character. And had been maligning your niece's character, and you were on the mute challenge, and he keeps shouting you out, shouting Tisha out, and shouting Marceau out, and how close you guys are. But not one denouncing of anything. Not once did you say, I was disappointed, I was disgusted, I was horrified at the accusations Funky DINEVA made against my niece. Not once did you say that, but you're worried about all these other people. You're bashing KEKE's family. You're worried about other YouTubers. You're worried about all these other things. And not the issue at hand. Not just simply grieving. Not just simply recognizing that there is family that are going to go to YouTube. that maybe that's a part of their grieving, right? Maybe they think that certain YouTubers are going to pay tribute to their mom, to their daughter, so therefore they're going to YouTube to have a level of escapism. Just like you decided in the middle of your grieving to go on YouTube and preview another YouTube you're going to do in a couple of days. But my thing is, why is it a hypocritical thing? If the oldest wants to be and see different somebody's YouTube and they're honoring his mom, what's wrong with that? Oh, it's only wrong if KEKE's mom does it, right? But then you want to also say that KEKE and her mom weren't close, right? You want to try to, quantify all these things of who was closest to who was friends with who was a true friend. Just because you show up to somebody's funeral, it doesn't mean that you guys are on the best of terms or that you were on the best of friends. It means that you recognize they're not here anymore and you're paying your final respects. That's what it means. It's not a competition. It's not a competition to see who's closest to who or who's got beef with who or whatever when the person's not even here anymore. It doesn't matter. Because you're not a part of all the other conversations that are going on and wanted to throw shade at the uncle for not paying for the funeral. Why is that important? Why do we need to know that information? You're talking about don't come for, people, family have issues all the time and you're worried about X, Y, and Z, but you're getting on your platform dragging other people's family. Why? Why are we dragging KEKE's family for? Was the public statement appropriate? No. But continuing to poke the bear and have an ongoing back and forth is not resolving any issues either. And dragging her mom for what? She just lost her daughter. So none of this matters of how close they were or weren't or what she attended or didn't attend. You're not focused on the fact that everybody is grieving, that everybody is sad, that everybody is emotional, that everybody is going through it in their own way. But you seem to be the moral police, the judge of character of how everyone needs to conduct themselves, but you seem to get a pass for all of your previous transgressions. All of that apparently is non-existent. Nothing you said or did, none of your accusations, none of your below-the-belt comments about people, none of that could have contributed to anybody ever being upset or anybody ever feeling a certain type of way. None of that matters, right? But I will say this, even if people in a family have beef, I've never seen it or heard any of the things that you've said in a family beef. I've never heard it go that far or that level before. So again, who is trying to be famous here? Who is the one trying to clout chase here? Who is the one trying to profit here? Who is trying to make themselves look good? Like I said, it's not a contest, it's not a popularity contest, it's not a competition. KEKE isn't here anymore. And the other thing, the last point I wanted to make is Funky DINEVA said that you and Letitia were not on good terms with KEKE at the time of her passing. He said that a week ago at the announcement of her passing. Said that y'all weren't cool, y'all weren't on speaking terms. That's what Funky DINEVA said. So my question again, 2 separate videos at least, and various comments on Instagram, on the Jasmine brand, on the Neighborhood Talk, and other platforms Funky DINEVA put out there. The allegations you didn't want the uncle to insinuate out there, and you say nothing. And goes on his platform and says you guys were not on good terms after somebody else said in the statement that you were. And also, furthermore, spent nearly 8 minutes dragging your niece and saying for certain that he thinks she unalived herself. So where is the smoke for that? Where is the energy for that? Because if you're truly upset about anybody trying to say anything mean or negative or nasty about your niece, wouldn't that be the first thing you call out? Instead of doing a shrine to Mel? Instead of doing a whole presentation about Mel, for what? For what? You have all this to say about Mel, but Mel hasn't been out here trying to feed stuff to bloggers or trying to, do TikTok lives or do Instagram lives or do all this other stuff, trying to be seen and trying to prove something to the people. She's gone dark. She's gone completely silent these past couple of weeks. But you're too worried about who is and isn't somewhere. You're too worried about keeping up certain beefs to go along, to have content. And again, it's a waste of time to do this back and forth with Mel. What are you achieving at this point? You literally just have an example of what happens, you guys, when people are bullied on the internet. When people are attacked relentlessly on the internet. And not one family member from the show ever stepped in to defend their relative. But instead, they sat back and stayed quiet because they were happy with it, because she quote unquote went to the dark side. She quote unquote was with Mel now. So now all of a sudden you've washed your hands of your relative, right? All of that's okay. But now she's gone. And now all of these other narratives want to be put out there that's not appropriate. But nonetheless, the real issue is people do not want to hear the truth. People do not want to hear about KEKE that was on the show in the earlier seasons, that was cool with Tisha, that was on good terms with Tisha. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about, again, words have power. The disgusting comments that were made. No apology, no accountability. Nobody wants to talk about the slander that Funky DINEVA did on the blogs and the comments, as well as on at least 2 YouTube videos. The day of the KEKE's death and the day after KEKE's funeral. Mute challenge on both. From the people he specifically shouted out from Love and Marriage Huntsville and how close he was to them. Implying as if he had your blessing to say the things that he said. Because that's what it means when you do not denounce somebody. But nonetheless, this wasn't it. If we're going to tell the truth, can we tell it all? Like Usher says in Confessions, can we tell the entire truth? And not just a partial truth to make yourself look good, but tell it all. And then we can have a real conversation about something. But until it's going to be, this limited information and nothing but a shade fest and a drag fest of other people to deflect from what the real issues are, there's never going to be any peace. There's never going to be any resolve. There's never going to be any conclusion. So there is that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post new content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.